Hey, Ricky, thanks for joining me today for a cup of coffee. It's the first time in a very long time that we actually have a chance to sit at the couch and have coffee together, shoot another episode of Espresso 4.0. Why is that? It's because we were touring the whole Europe at different events. And I figured if we sat down a little bit and kind of summarize our experience, share how we felt. Some of the viewers might find it interesting. The ones that have been at some of the events or haven't, we're thinking whether they should go in future or not. So let's start with the big boy. Let's start with Hannover. Actually, no, rewind. How important do you think it is important to participate in fairs in manufacturing industry? And if yes, why?
Okay. So thanks for having me. Thanks for the coffee. It's good to be back. And yeah, we've been kind of busy lately going to multiple events in Germany and Luxembourg. It's good to see that people are coming back from COVID and their events are kicking off. I think having that one-on-one conversations or that in-person experience is important. Now, in terms of if it's valuable or not, at the end of the day, what's going to define if it's valuable or not is the return of investment. Mm-hmm. So it would depend on each company and where they are, what stage they are, and so forth. It is important in terms of getting to meet people face to face, especially after the pandemic. People want to get back out and interact with other human beings. That's kind of part of our nature. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it depends on the stage of your company. It depends on what are the outcomes or what is it that you want. If you're a big brand, if you're Microsoft, Salesforce, AWS, you always have to be there. It's more about a branding approach than the actual business that you could drive.
Sure.
Although I feel, we've been, you as well, you were in the Hannover Messe, and when you go to those booths, they're huge booths, but they're full of meetings. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure that they generate business from that. But yeah, it is important. You get to meet people that you have not thought of in the past, very international people that are sometimes more difficult to talk to. So, for example, it could be from the Emirates, from Czech Republic, from the US, from Canada, from Mexico. You have a lot of global approach. And Hannover Messe has been like the center point for manufacturers since it became the Hannover Messe event. Mm-hmm. It wasn't as big as before, as I understand. It was my first time there, so I couldn't really speak from my own behalf, from my own experience, sorry. But in any case, this year was big too. But I think normally it has between 200, 300,000 people. This year, I think it was almost 100,000 people, not even. So in terms of size, it's less, but it still was very valuable.
It's still pretty big. I've never been to it myself before, but I have to admit, I easily one of the biggest events I've ever been to, even at this smaller edition as it was this year. So the reason I'm asking you this, obviously, is because you're in charge of marketing for Wizata. So your 2 cents go a long way, and a lot of people watching this can benefit. Now, speaking of participating in fairs, there's obviously 2 ways one can participate: as a visitor and as an exhibitor. There's people, and I know we've also been in these shoes. Should we invest in being an exhibitor, or should we just go visit? What do you think are things that are going to affect one's decision, and which is better, if any? Can you shine a little bit of light on that? Like, what have you learned in Wizata so far on that?
Yeah, so being a visitor can give you a bit of an understanding of what the event feels like and what are the profile of people that go to the event. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to make business if you're a visitor, if you're not actively searching for a solution and you're trying to more promote your own solution if you're a visitor, because people are actually they're promoting their own solution. So it's kind of, you're not going to speak to the right people, right?
Mhm.
Because they are actually salespersons or they're more on the commercial side than actually somebody that can be the ideal for our solution in our case, right? You could get lucky. That also happens. But all in all, it depends again on your company and what you want to achieve and where you stand. So if you find a very niche event, a very, very particular niche event that is really tied to what you do as a company and that you know you can generate value, then it would be interesting to exhibit, but then it would depend how much it would cost. I mean, these big events in Hannover Messe, I don't know, a booth could cost between 15, 20K, depending on the size, depending on this, on the hall and so forth.
Sure.
So is that worth it or is that not worth it? That's kind of on every company. For early stage startups, maybe it's not the most ideal scenario. For big companies, it makes more sense perhaps. But again, that's something you have to look internally and see if it works. So I would suggest research a lot who are the profiles that are going to that event. Make sure that you find that they're a good fit for your solution, and then make a choice if you have the budget to go for it.
Fair enough. Having had this experience that we did, participated as an exhibitor, but also had the opportunity to visit a lot of booths, and speak to a lot of people. What are your biggest takeaways?
So there's a lot of things that kind of stand out. I think the big one being sustainability and new technologies that drive, a more consumer, that drive a more efficient process in manufacturing specifically. So reduction of energy consumption, stabilizing your quality, or like reducing CO2 emission, right? Mm-hmm. Like this is a big subject. Actually, Microsoft launched a new vertical on sustainability during the event. There was a lot of halls on alternative energy. So like hydro cars, right? Mm-hmm. We saw that. It's something that popped out a lot, and it goes tied to Europe's commitment to pushing for a more eco-friendly continent, let's say. Mm-hmm. So I think that goes all hand in hand, right? So, okay. I mean, ourselves, one of our main copies for our booth was reduce your energy consumption. And we got a lot of people just stopping by and like, how do you reduce your energy consumption with AI? So that was kind of like the opening statement to start a conversation. So,
in other words, okay, I understand. What you're saying is that sustainability and sustainability development goals are going to play a very influential role in industry as a whole in Europe, likely world going forward, and that was very well reflected in the Hannover Messe event. Totally agree. I think my experience echoes that as well. There's Industry 4.0 everywhere also plastered. I think the idea was to kind of tie those two together. That's what we were trying to do. And in fact, the idea, in fact, of Industry 4.0 is a shift to more data-driven organizations and manufacturing, where you can use the power of data not only to optimize your production, but also to reduce energy consumption and reduce, therefore, the impact on the environment. Now, in conclusion, do you see us going to any more events? And what do you see as our strategy in terms of events in the future?
So, I mean, it's up to decision. I mean, at this stage, we need more information to make an educated guess, but I would like to actually get it back to you. and ask you about, we went to the Dusseldorf event of Fastmarkets. You had a keynote. It was sustainability. It was the first time an AI, it was the first time a solution regarding AI in the metal industry was presenting. So I want to hear what is your feedback from that as well, understanding how AI is tied to sustainability and Industry 4.0, as you mentioned before, and where do you think that goes?
Well, first of all, it was pretty cool having been invited to the event. It's a great opportunity to speak at the Iron Ore conference in Dusseldorf. I was surprised to hear the feedback from the audience that it's the first time that they're actually talking about AI optimization within mining and metal manufacturing. Maybe because I'm so close to the subject that I hear it everywhere and all the time. I don't know, but certainly a great opportunity for us to showcase as kind of trailblazers in an environment where we're the new kids. I'm hoping that's going to bring more conversations, going to bring us to more tables. Certainly, a lot of things that we should be exploring with such manufacturers. I'm talking to manufacturers. I'm speaking about manufacturers of steel manufacturing technology. Does that make sense? Certainly a lot to be explored in terms of collaboration with such companies, and time will tell.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, if they produce the machines, they can have the data or sensors inside of the process, and they understand their process the best way because they make their machines to run as efficient as possible. So if you combine their know-how with AI and technology know-how, and then with the process engineers from the metal or raw material industries, then you really have like a golden nugget of knowledge that you can transform and digitalize. Yep. So you can run the most optimal process, right? Absolutely. That's kind of like the goal.
Absolutely. It's about changing kind of the order. Instead of separately us as solution providers going to a manufacturer, a steel manufacturer, and them as hardware providers going to separately, and then having to kind of go through each other's red tape to make things integrated, we actually work together in sort of a more transparent, more collaborative, more streamlined way in order to bring about a more optimal production process, which leverages both their tech know-how and our data science know-how to bring about the best results possible.
Yeah, that at the end drives sustainability. No, if you look at it, right, it can be reducing waste, reducing energy consumption, maintaining quality. Yeah.
Again, another thing that was really echoed at the Iron Ore conference was, in fact, the subject of sustainability in mining as well as metal manufacturing.
And the last event was the Smart Manufacturing Week from Luxembourg Innovation.
Cherry on top.
So a local event, all the big players of the country, one single place under one roof, speaking about innovation, sustainability, and digitalization, right? And we had the chance to one of our partners to share the story of how we work together and explain how this drives more sustainable processes that they can start rolling out throughout the world. So I think it's a really good, it was a really good conference to understand that that's no longer a dream, or it's no longer something untangible, that it's actually doable, that you can set it up, that you can start using it today. And, data is there, technology is there. You just need to connect the dots and start using what you have to be more sustainable.
100%. 100%. I think it was great that one of our partners actually took the initiative to speak. I think it helped drive the point home, have actual provable case, in the flesh, if you will. And with addressing one of the biggest concerns of the market and the industry is, does this work? Has it worked? Can you prove that it works? because that's always one of the first steps in a conversation, like send me the business cases. All right, Ricky. Well, thanks for your nuggets of wisdom. Thanks for sharing your experience. Thanks for grabbing a coffee with me. Kind of got to get back to work, but it was lovely having you. Let's do this soon sometime. And
don't mind the green shirts.
This is a uniform here in Wizata.
Yeah, we have a concert later. It's a tournament,
a performance,
a bowling tournament. Ciao, ciao.